Hello, welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Matthew Lucas.
And I'm Stephen Ryan.
And we post a video every week on a Friday, so do hit subscribe and the notification bell if you want to know exactly what we're doing every week.
And don't forget our Monday shorts. So if you've got a question you'd like to ask me, pop it in the comments below and we'll get round to it in our Monday shorts.
We will indeed. But Stephen, talking of being around things,
Yes.
I'm sensing a theme.
One could say mellow fruitfulness. In
Oh,
fact.
yes.
Yes, yeah, to borrow something. So
Look at these trees, my goodness.
yes, we are in an orchard of some interest because
Yes.
it's an orchard full of rare and unusual and interesting plants, all obviously edible. And it's been a 43-something year project. So really interesting place to be.
Yeah. So it's in the Yarra Valley, just outside of Melbourne. So it's very much a day trippable location from Melbourne.
Oh, yes.
We'll put all the links below and you can make a booking and come and you get taken through the orchard and you can pick and eat whatever you want.
Fabulous idea.
We may have already done that, just saying to you.
Yes, I think we've done quite nicely, thank you. So it's called Rayner's Orchard and we're here to look at some of the more potentially obscure but interesting fruiting plants that might well be a useful home garden subject, perhaps.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And interesting to note, no matter what time of the year you come, what month, there is always at least, they say,
10.
10.
Yeah, 10. Yes, that's what Len said.
10 different fruiting things, plants that you can eat as you're here. And I mean, we've probably had
12 or more.
And you know, so there's obviously things that you're very familiar with, so plums and nectarines, but the varieties that they have are older, more obscure, not grown commercially. But as Stephen said, we're here to look at some of the more left of field.
Yeah, some of the more interesting, obscure ones. After all, that does seem to be our theme.
Well, it's your thing, yeah. I don't mind.
Well, you're coming along on the ride, so you've just got to accept that as well.
Well, without further ado, the smell is intoxicating. The vista is divine. Should we go and meet Len, who is the founder, the originator?
Yeah, and certainly a guru of fruit.
All right, off we go.
All right, Matthew, I'd like to introduce you to Len. Len Rayner is world famous for his fruit growing, and I met Len some years ago at the Yarra Valley Rare Plant Fair. That's where I think I first met him.
Yep.
And I've been enjoying looking at Len's stock that he had at the fair every year since. So that's how we knew about him, and that's why we're here. So Len, Matthew.
Good to meet you, Len. And I've actually bought things from you, he won't remember, at the Yarra Valley Plant Fair.
Yeah,
I bought a finger lime from you.
Yeah,
we were just having this conversation. It's okay, but it could be better.
Yeah.
Well, finger limes are one of the things that they're very temperamental. When you transplant them, they hate it like crazy, so they sit there and sulk for a few years.
Yes, and then, mine lost a lot of its leaves.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Okay,
Yeah,
I feel vindicated.
I think with finger limes, it's just depending on how good your luck is, whether you do any good or not.
Yeah. Now, getting back though.
So not about me. But...
Yes, it's not about you. When did you first acquire the property?
We had a fish and chip shop in Yarra Junction and we always wanted a bit of land, and we looked at 5 acres, but we couldn't afford 5 acres. So we bought 40 instead because it was cheaper, as you do.
There's logic.
Yeah.
And then we started having a problem with cattle getting in, and someone said, oh, you need to fence it. So I looked at that and decided we couldn't afford it. So we figured, well, we'd plant something. So the first thing we planted, well, we had to clear the land first because it was all bush. We thought, well, we'll clear the land. And of course, the land's pretty rough. There's no soil here. It's all, there's about this much topsoil.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So we thought, well, we plant a patch of potatoes because we had a fish and chip shop, of course.
Logic.
So, well, it was flawed logic. But anyway, so we planted the spuds, and you know, it took me 30 years to get rid of the last potato plant on the farm.
They're tenacious.
Anyway, so then we decided, well, the place is starting to cost us a lot of money. Rates were a fair bit, and we needed fencing and all the rest of it. And so we figured we'd plant an orchard. Now, that was our first mistake. Actually, no, that was our about third mistake. But we sold the fish and chip shop after 5 years, and then we started orcharding full time. And then we spent the next 20 years not making any money at all.
How did you then morph into, because there's some really rare and unusual things here. So how did you go from not knowing anything, planting potatoes, to having some really rare and unusual things and them
Okay,
doing
so
really well.
after about 20 years, I had this reoccurring nightmare. I was driving backwards and couldn't stop. And that's exactly what the farmer
What,
was
really?
doing.
You
Every
seriously
night
had a recurring
I was
dream?
having that nightmare every night. I'd wake up in a cold
This is like
sweat.
a therapy session.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, yeah, and the thing was, it was true. The farm was going backwards and I couldn't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So then farmers markets turned up. And of course, that was our salvation. So the minute the farmers markets turned
Yeah.
up, we had a customer base that wanted our product. They wanted to talk to the farmer. They wanted to make sure you're doing okay. And they were happy to be dealing with you. In fact, very encouraging. But then the next thing happened, they all wanted to come and see the farm.
Yeah.
So that was fair enough. So we talked to the Shire and they said, now, you know, you got to get a permit for that, don't you?
Oh, yes,
Which,
shires
yeah.
always do that. Mm.
So we got a permit and then we started walking people around the farm and letting them pick the fruit and all. And then after a couple of broken ankles and a broken wrist, we figured that was not going to work because
yeah.
people just, there's a bit of a dip in the middle of the rows to keep the water away from the trees.
Yeah.
So city people just don't understand that not everything's smooth like concrete.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd get a tractor and trailer. So we got a little tractor and trailer and did a bit of advertising and then it sort of got bigger and bigger.
So what about then the rare things? So how did you go in that direction? How did you find those plants?
Well, there's people like Yamar Rare Plants. They've got this thing called Google on
And
my
Stephen
iPhone.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We're all growing a few rarities, although I don't grow an awful lot of edibles. I have some, but not a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, there was places around you could get them, and Google's always got the answers to whatever you want. So we started looking around and we started planting a few odd things, and suddenly people were saying, "Oh, you've got this. I haven't seen that forever." Anyway, so we moved along and ended up with a lot of different sorts of things. Not all of them worked, mind you. We planted a Kia apple, which is a native African plant, which has thorns about that long,
Yeah, yeah.
razor sharp, and they're this far apart.
Oh, what's the problem?
Okay, well, the problem was the trees got too big and they just got too dangerous. So if somebody had to fall into that, they were going to get, well, a lot of,
Lacerated, yeah.
well, yeah, at least.
And has anything failed that you've had a go? Because just walking around, there's some things here that I wouldn't have thought would have flourished here. So have you been surprised by some of the things that have done well?
There's things like American pawpaws, which you'll probably see a bit later on. Nice big fruit. There's macadamia nuts. Now, who thought macadamia nuts would live in Melbourne? They
Yeah,
do.
well, from North Queensland, it's sort of
Yeah.
a bit of a difference, isn't
And they crop really well.
Yeah.
But they do take a long time to get fruit. There's things like Brazilian grape trees. We had Brazilian cherries too. They just didn't work at all. We got white sapote, which is driving me insane because they have 3 or 4 pieces of fruit a year.
And they're not a tiny plant.
No, they're a bit tall.
Yeah.
There was things like chokeberries we tried. Well, have you ever eaten a chokeberry?
Yeah, I grow them.
Is it choke by name, choke by nature?
Absolutely. You eat those things and go.
I'm sure there's better cultivars out there or something.
We did pull those out because I found one person out of thousands that actually liked them, so I figured that wasn't a good deal.
So you've collected all this stuff. Have you got any sense of how many different fruit trees or fruiting plants that is on this site?
A really rough idea. I think there's about 450 different varieties of fruit.
Pretty impressive.
There's about, I don't know, 7,000 trees.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of anything. In fact, it's not a commercial orchard anymore. It's a U-pick farm.
Yeah.
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 But we do have some pretty impressive fruit though. And the fact that it's ripened on the trees is what really kills it.
Well, we've had a walking sample.
Yes, we've had a go at quite a number of them this morning already.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we haven't covered, how big is the property, did you say?
It's nearly 40 acres.
Nearly 40 acres. And is most of it under cultivation?
No, only about 25 to 30 acres under
Yeah.
cultivation.
So some of it's still bushland and
It
what
is,
have you around.
yeah.
And I guess we should admit to the fact that you're now a retired gentleman.
I am.
You've come back here to do this interview with us kindly,
Yeah.
but you're now a free agent.
I am, and damn, I'm loving it too. I should have done it years ago.
Now the business, it's obviously in somebody else's hands, but it's morphed into a U-pick type place.
Yep.
Now, I went and had a look at the website and all that sort of stuff, and you can find out what's in fruit at the time. So if you're thinking of coming out here, you can sort of Google it and find out whether the plums are ripe or the apricots or whatever else.
Yep.
And people come on a tour. and
Yes.
that's what it's all about now, really, isn't it?
So they're personalised guided tours. So a guide takes you around the orchard, shows you what fruit is ripe, and hopefully shows you how to pick it and what to eat. So you get to pick your own fruit.
We'll put all the links below. So if you're in Melbourne, this is about an hour out of Melbourne in the Yarra Valley, and it's the most fantastic place. And you were saying basically, whenever you come, there will be something for you to pick and eat.
Not just something. There's a minimum of 8 varieties of fruit every single day of the year.
There you go, a minimum of 8 things. Well, we can attest to that.
Yeah, we've had more than our 8, I reckon. Yeah. You've got so many different things, over 400 different varieties of fruiting plants in the place. And walking around, there doesn't seem to be any sense of we need 10 of this or 15 of that or 20 of that. It's a really interesting mixture. It's not sort of really formalised. Am I right in that?
Yeah, we work on the chaos and mayhem system. So when something new comes available, we tend to put it wherever there's space.
Yeah.
So a lot of the trees you just don't ever want to pull out. And when we get something that runs the end of its life, you pull it out and you look around what else you can fit in there. So the exotic stuff is what we've sort of pursued as hard as we can. Not all of them work. We tried cornelian cherries, and I don't know whether you've eaten any of those at any point.
Yeah, yes, I grow cornelian cherries as well.
They're a bit of an acquired taste. In fact, I found 2 or 3 people that actually like them out of 10,000. So
I have read that it makes the very best jelly to serve with gamey meat.
I've heard that too.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
all you
it's
need
probably
is
something that Google puts out there that nobody believes. But
all you need is gamey meat.
Yeah.
And just walking around here, everything looks very lush. Do you fertilise? What is the regime?
So we tend, I think they still do, tend to use organic fertilisers. There's a product called Sea Mungus, which we like. Though the only problem we find with that, it makes things grow like stink. So
there's a good ad for it, though.
Probably a little bit good. So ideal for a home garden, though. Yeah. And I think.
And is that it? Do you put that on everything?
Pretty much everything gets treated the same, whether it likes it or not. Yeah. Because there's so many varieties, you just simply can't afford to treat anything differently.
Well, I think we should wend our way, Steve and Ryan, and go and find some weird and wonderful fruiting plants.
Yeah.
And thank you,
Thanks,
Len, for coming out of retirement for us today. It's great to actually talk to the person who was the prime mover and getting the place going in the first place.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. The problem I had when I got to 76, I just couldn't work long enough hours in a day, so I had to give it up. And I was lucky to find these blokes. The new owners are just the nicest people, so you just couldn't hope for anybody better to sell the business to.
And it looks like they're following the same basic principles you always have done, so they're keeping the place going in the same way.
They are,
which is fabulous.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Len.
Thank you, Len.
We'll put all the details below, so you must come out and visit whenever you're in Melbourne or the Yarra Valley.
Good on you, mates.
Thanks, Len.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen. This is looking unprepossessing.
Yes, in fact, it looks like we're standing in front of a hedge shrub.
Or it actually, a bit privety. It looks a little bit pomegranate-y, the leaves.
Yeah, well, it is in fact Eugenia, so it's in the what we would call lily-pilly family.
Oh, yeah.
We have quite a number of Australian native Eugenias and relatives. And this one's from Brazil. This is Eugenia uniflora.
Yes.
And it's commonly...
Uniflora.
Yeah, one flower. I don't quite get that.
Right.
Yeah, because it gets clusters of flowers, and we'll show you where they form in a moment. It comes from Brazil. It's commonly known as the Brazilian cherry. Yeah. And it suffers from a condition called cauliflora.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is?
It flowers and fruits along the older stems.
Oh.
So caula as in stem, flora as in flower.
So a lot of tropical things, chocolate, cacao, flowers and fruits from the stem. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything.
Well, there is, if we go in and have a look, and we'll bring the cameras in, but you can see all the little tiny flowers just starting to form on the trunks. Wow. And I have to say, if I was using this as a hedge, I'd almost see it as a waste because it's got such fantastic bark. Yeah. If it were in my garden, and I doubt that I could grow it because I think we're too cold, I would want to thin it out and show off these beautiful trunks. It's got the most gorgeous bark on it, and it peels off in sheets, and it's just lovely.
It's stunning. Now, how big would it get? Because all of these things, I'm just thinking, how manageable are they for a small, like if you had a small city garden? This right now is really quite elegant.
Yes, and I think quite manageable. I mean, it's not going to grow into a vast tree, probably 4 or 5 metres tall within a reasonable span wouldn't be outrageous, but it would also be really prunable and manageable. And because it flowers and fruits on the old wood, trimming it over isn't going to cause it any problems. It
Right.
will just, because it'll keep flowering from the same old stems.
Yeah.
So you could keep it down quite a bit by doing that. And unfortunately, it's not in fruit at the moment,
Yep.
but it is starting to flower. And I think I was told it's more a sort of a winter fruit. So we're here in high summer. So it'll be some months before it flowers and does its fruiting. But really handsome looking plant.
Yeah.
Should grow well around Melbourne and similar climates.
Well, here's the thing. Brazilian, I'm presuming it's subtropical.
Yeah.
And does Len get frost up here?
You wouldn't get a lot of frost up here, just light frosts, very, very light ones, so only a degree or two of frost.
Right.
And a lot of these things will acquire hardiness as they get more and more established. So in the case of this plant, it may well be an issue to get them going in the first place.
Yeah.
But now that it's well established in the garden, even if you've got the once in 100-year frost, it would take the tips off things. But because it's got such woody growth on it now, it would reshoot again. So they'd be perfectly sound.
Well, it's a beautiful thing. I've never heard of it. So I'd pity we can't see and taste the fruit, but never
No,
mind.
but we can show you the little flower buds forming. So that's at least something.
We can. All right. Onwards and upwards.
Yes, let's.
Now, I love the foliage of this. What is it, Stephen?
All right, a Feijoa.
Aha.
And it's certainly not the rarest fruit we're going to meet today. And in fact, it's a bit of a garden stalwart, really.
It is.
You know, you see them around Melbourne a lot. They're planted to hide fences, to screen you out from the neighbours, all those things that we try and do in our small gardens. And it does those jobs with aplomb, but also has attractive flowers and delicious fruits.
Okay, so what's its botanic name? Where's it from?
Well, it's from southern Brazil, and it's known as Feijoa, although it's had other names as well, so Feijoa sellowiana. And I just like the fact that it has this really glossy, deep green foliage with a silvery reverse.
Yeah.
So the foliage itself makes for a great garden feature. Shows off the red stamens of the flowers really well, and the fruit ripens in the late autumn, early winter, and it goes on for quite a while, and everybody has their recipes for Feijoa jams and Feijoa chutneys and whatever else, but just off the plant, they're delicious fruit as well.
Oh, right. So you can...
Yeah, you can just hog into them.
And they're just starting to form now.
Yeah.
So once again, size-wise, where is this tree at?
This tree is at about 2/3 fully grown, I would say.
So again, smallish.
Yeah, manageable. And because it's very prunable, you could in fact use it very well as a formalised hedge in a garden. So yes, as a hedge or screening plant, I think you could go far worse than selecting Feijoa in the sort of Mediterranean style climate of southern Victoria.
Yeah. Interesting, again, another Brazilian that's doing well here, even though it can get a little bit frosty.
Well, it does come from southern Brazil, so it's coming from the less equatorial parts of Brazil.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's reasonably cold hardy. I mean, I could grow one at Mount Macedon. I doubt very much whether I'd ever get any decent fruit because I think our seasons are far too short, but I could certainly grow one. In fact, I think I did have one in the garden years ago, but I got bored with it and pulled it out. But there you go.
Oh, yeah.
There
But
you
I've
go.
seen them in bloom, and the flowers against the foliage is stunning,
Yeah,
isn't it?
they're a great little tree. And again, they're probably not one of the rarest things we're going to engage with at Rayner's orchard today. But walking past them, I thought, well, yeah, Feijoas are a really useful garden plant.
They are. Okay, on to the next.
All right.
Stephen, what bower are we beneath?
Well, it's one of those fruit trees that has its popular moments and then disappears out of cultivation a bit and then comes back again. And we would call it a Tamarillo or a tree tomato.
Yes.
And it's another South American, so it comes from Peru and surrounding areas.
Yep.
And it's a true Solanum, so that puts it in the same group as things like potatoes and all those things. So eggplants, deadly nightshade. It's interesting because there's so many plants within the Solanaceae family that are either edible or sometimes quite toxic.
Yeah.
So you wonder who was the one that found out which ones were edible. Hopefully the one that survived. So the tree tomato is one of those smallish, short-lived trees that again can make a very good home garden plant. It grows fast, generally starts fruiting within 2 to 3 years or so.
Yeah.
Lasts normally about 10 to 12 years, and then it'll start to fall apart. So if you know it's going to last 12 years, plant another one when it's 9 years old.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the next one coming along ready to start cropping. And there are a multitude of different cultivars out there, so there's different fruit coloured forms. I'm assuming this one is the classical red one when it ripens up.
Yeah.
They're very popular in New Zealand. They're not as commonly grown here as a fruit crop.
Now, how do you eat it? Do you eat it like a tomato? Is it that kind of thing, or is it a sweet?
It's got a tang, it's got a bite.
Yeah.
And the best way to eat it, I mean, you can make relishes and jellies and jams and all sorts of things out of tree tomato. I think the best way to eat them is to have them for breakfast. You slice them down the middle, you sit them on a saucer, you put a tiny little bit of sherry or port on the top of them and a sprinkling of sugar. You put them in the fridge overnight and you spoon it out in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely delicious.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Just noticing the flowers are very much
Yes.
everything else in that family.
Oh yes, as soon as you see the flowers you go, oh, Solanaceae, of course.
Now, hardiness?
Not particularly. They're quite frost tender. I certainly couldn't grow one at Macedon.
Yeah.
Remember too, if you're planting a Tamarillo, make sure it's in a sheltered spot because strong winds will batter the big leaves and also it can even topple them out of the ground because their roots aren't all that terribly strong. But they'll grow around suburban Melbourne quite well because of the sort of heat island that the city creates, so there's virtually no frost.
Yeah.
So they're easy enough in basically frost-free environments. They do like a lot of water, so they need to be well watered, and they do better if the soil is rich and deep.
Well, wouldn't we all?
Yes, of course.
Well, these look like a new planting.
Yes, these haven't been in terribly long. I think this is one of Len's later plantings.
Yeah.
And these are a fruit that's becoming quite popular. It's supposed to have all sorts of health and medical properties. I haven't eaten the fruit of this yet, and it's not ripe, so I can't even try one. It's commonly known as a jujuba, and it's in the genus Ziziphus, Ziziphus jujuba, and it comes from China, Southeast Asia area. And this will grow in a wide range of climates. It will grow in tropical to subtropical climates. It will grow into Mediterranean and temperate climates. So it has quite a wide range of habitats that it will grow in. And I remember seeing my first plant of it. I was on an overseas tour and it was growing in a public park. And I looked at this thing and I couldn't figure it out. I don't remember exactly how we worked it out, whether we did one of those searches for plants by taking a picture or what happened. I don't remember. Anyhow, we worked out what it was, and it makes a large shrub, 3 meters or so tall, does have a tendency to potentially sucker, although these ones, Len tells me, are grafted ones, so they've grafted them, I guess, as special clones, so you wouldn't allow them to sucker. And there's certainly a lot of fruit coming on them, but be warned, they are not the most gentle of trees.
The thorns are a killer, but I must say, the bark is this beautiful sort of silver brown.
Yeah.
The leaves are gorgeous, and the
Lovely.
berries.
Flowers are not anything to write home about.
No.
Tiny little green flowers.
Yeah.
But
But the overall form of it's really lovely.
well, I could see it being grown in a rather oriental layered effect in a garden. So with a bit of interesting pruning, you could actually turn it into quite a garden feature.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't seem to require terribly much. It's not particularly fussed about soil types. Probably needs good drainage, but apart from that, I don't think it matters too much. And certainly looking at these young trees, if the fruit that's on these is any sort of indication, they'd be quite productive for their size.
Yeah, it could be a good tub specimen too. I think it's quite handsome, but those thorns.
Yes, yeah, don't put it right next to your path.
No.
Well, unless, of course, you don't want visitors.
So as Len was saying, there's a real sub-theme. Brazil, China,
Yeah.
things that are doing really well here
Yeah.
on the more exotic end of the spectrum.
Yes, it's interesting. That's where two sort of hotspots of botanical interest when it comes to edible
Fruity
fruit,
things, yeah.
certainly from the Asia area and South America, some of our best.
Well, we should go and look at something Aussie.
Yes, what a good idea. Let's find something that we can relate to.
Okay. Well, Stephen, this is in fact one of the plants that I bought from Len
All
at
right.
the Yarra Valley Plant Fair, which we've made a video at.
Yes, we certainly have.
Finger limes.
Yes, and if I give you the botanical name, it'll tell you where they come from.
Yes.
Citrus australasica.
So, firstly, the smell is divine. I had no idea there was a native citrus to Australia.
Oh yes, yes, and they've also done quite a bit of breeding and selecting, and in fact even crossing it with some of the non-Australian species of citrus. But the biggest claim to fame, I guess, from the point of view of the finger limes, is when you break open the fruit, it has this amazing, what they call caviar, so I guess fruit caviar, and the zing it will give to any dish is quite remarkable. And this is potentially one of the few other Australian native plants that could become really important as a fruiting plant, much like the macadamia, but it's sort of comparatively new to cultivation at this stage. But certainly here in Australia, you can nearly always buy a finger lime from one of the general garden centres, or even, dare I say, some of the big barns. They make great tub specimens. They're not terribly big growing, although they can take a wee while to start getting their act together when you move them away from the humidity crib of the nursery.
As Len said, mine sulks a bit.
Yeah, and I might add, just getting stabbed in the back then.
I was about to say, it's pretty stabby.
Yeah, they're quite prickly, and I just got stabbed by the one on that side of me just as we were talking. And you'll note that I'm such a good actor that I ignored it.
Fell through. So there seems to be like two distinct types. There's one with very almost black fruit, and ones with very green fruit.
Yeah, well, there's about 3 or 4 different ones, but the major important thing about the finger limes is the colour of the finger lime caviar.
Yeah.
And some of them are green, some of them will be yellowy, and some of them are sort of pinky red.
Yeah, I'm going to just have a little taste.
It's probably quite bitter because it's not an overly ripe one yet.
No, it's very nice. It's very
nice. But they are rather fun to eat because they sort of explode in your mouth. And I think it's a wonderful little fruit tree, and I'm glad to say that we can claim it as our own.
Yeah.
So there you go. So the finger limes.
Just the fragrance. So there's literally the most incredible citrus fragrance from the leaves.
Wonderful. And of course, when it's in flower, the flowers have that classical sort of citrus tree smell. So they've got a lot going for them. And I have to say, these ones are growing right out in full sun here in Rayner's orchard, but they will tolerate a comparatively large amount of shade as well. So they're one of those things you can grow in a diversity of aspects, especially as a pot plant, that you can still get something productive from.
Yeah. And it's not really a tree as such.
No, it's a shrub. Yeah. I don't think it could ever allude to being a proper tree.
And from a distance, you wouldn't necessarily think it was a citrus. It looks like something else.
Yeah, well, knowing the full range of citrus, it sort of falls in the middle from my perspective, but there you go.
He's the horticulturalist, I'm not. All right, well.
So there you go. So the finger limes, and I think they're great fun, and they are now becoming quite a recognised culinary plant.
Yeah.
And so I think they have a great future, and we should all engage with having a finger lime somewhere.
Well, I've got one.
Yes. No, I haven't yet.
You need to engage with one, Steve.
Yeah, I probably do.
All right, on to the next.
Yes, let's go. All right, Matthew, we've got yet another attractive plant with very good foliage and great presence as a garden plant, as well as being useful and edible.
Another sub-theme of this.
Yes, it would seem to be. So this is the strawberry guava, Psidium cattleyanum, and it's got masses of little green fruit through it. So come late autumn, early winter, these will produce thousands of berries. So they'll be a really useful crop for the home orchard. And the glossy, rich green foliage is fabulous. These trees, again, are probably about 2/3 fully grown, so they're up around about the 2.5, 3 metre mark. Their blossom is attractive. You get little white fluffy blossoms on them. You couldn't ask for a more productive garden plant.
Yeah. So where's this from?
Well, these are all South American species. So, so that sort of Brazil sort of area. And it's quite a hot spot for interesting fruiting plants, actually.
And that seem to be doing quite well in southern Victoria's climate as well.
Yeah, they seem to be coping rather well. Again, this probably wouldn't fruit terribly well for me at Macedon. I think we're too cold up there.
Yeah.
But here in the sunny Yarra Valley, they're doing exceedingly well.
And how, forgive me, how do you eat them? Do you have to peel them, or what do you do?
Just pop them in your mouth when they're fully ripe, and you can spit out the skin once you've dealt with it if you don't like it.
There you go. Now, there's another guava over here. So which is this one? The magic of technology.
This is the lime guava.
Yeah.
And so it's another Psidium guajava. I think my pronunciation might be a bit off, but anyhow. And it is also loaded in fruit, which will be ripe a little bit later on. And again, is another sort of Central to South American plant. This one is not as big growing as the strawberry guava, so it might actually suit people in a slightly smaller garden.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a sort of an unkept, rangy sort of plant.
It's a lolliper.
Yes, it is. That doesn't necessarily go against it in my books, but a little bit of pruning and shaping can make all the difference with some of these plants. But if you look in closely at this one, it is also completely laden in fruit.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how well the crop comes on later in the year. But certainly looking at that plant, that's more than paying its way if you're looking at it from a productive potential.
They're also very handsome trees, very shiny, very beautiful.
Yeah, and generally speaking, quite easy to grow in more or less frost-free environments.
Right, all right. I think down here is something equally as compelling.
Oh yes, let's go and find it, shall we?
All right, Stephen, what's
All
this odd thing?
Well, this odd thing is actually one of my favourite fruit trees in some
Yeah.
ways, not because of the fruit, I might add. This is a European medlar. It's botanically, or was botanically known as Mespilus germanica, and it is now been lumped in with the hawthorns.
Oh.
So it's now, in fact, a Crataegus.
Well, I can see that. Makes sense.
Yeah, well, I guess so, although I do miss Mespilus as a genus, I'm sorry, but there you go.
Yeah.
And medlars were really popular back in sort of the Middle Ages. Later on, things like
Your
peaches
childhood.
and apples and things came in, and the medlars sort of faded out of popularity for reasons that are fairly obvious. I mean, they're smallish fruit. You can't eat them till they go soft and squishy, and so they're not everybody's taste in fruit.
Yeah.
But as a garden tree, it is fabulous.
All right.
It's a small enough tree that you could fit it into the average small garden in a suburban block. Its large white blossom that it produces in the spring is really pretty. The fruit always causes comment, even if you're not picking it and using it.
Yeah, it is odd looking.
Yes, there's a rude common name for it that's got to do with the rear end of a cat.
Okay.
It really is a very pretty garden tree because you get the blossom, you get the attractive and ornamental fruit, whether you use it or not. I gave up making medlar jellies and medlar preserves and things because I got sick of sticky kitchens and third-degree burns, really.
Oh, you're no fun.
Yeah, exactly. But in the autumn, the tree also colours beautifully. So you get fabulous autumn colour on it, everything from yellow through to sort of light reds. And with age, it can build up into a nice, gnarly, sort of ancient fruit tree look.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of how big it's going to get, where are we up to with these trees?
Oh, these would be about half grown.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, in this sort of setting, they're going to be pruned and kept in order.
Yeah.
Mine in the garden at home, I pruned it up so I can walk under it. So I've taken all the lower stuff off it, and mine's the Dutch medlar, and it has quite a broad spreading sort of crown to it. These ones actually look like they might be the Dutch medlar as well, but I think they've been pruned to keep them in.
Right. So, I mean, this is a bit of a sub-theme with a lot of these trees, that a lot of them are small,
Yeah.
and a lot of them do multiple things. Blossom, fruit, autumn foliage, and in fact, many of them bark as well.
Yeah, not so much with the medlar. It's not
No.
unattractive, but not important. So they could be useful plants to have in a garden. And if you do use the fruit, well, they're the sort of fruit you're not going to be able to buy anyway.
Yeah.
And I always figure, why plant a commercial apple in your garden?
When you can go and buy it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Plant something that you can't buy,
Yeah.
and then you can go and buy the fruit that's out there and that's generally available if it's your want. But the fruit you have in your garden should be something that's a little bit different.
Okay, and in fact, our mutual friend uses your medlars to make jam.
Yes, exactly. And medlar liqueur.
That's what she does. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
A potent liqueur with medlars.
Yeah, very tasty indeed.
Yes,
If you-
drink responsibly.
Yes, and if you can turn anything into alcohol, I'm on board.
There you go. All right, well, let's go and find something else.
All right.
So what's this, Stephen?
Well, I was quite pleased to find this plant growing here. I hadn't sort of thought about it much, but of course Len would have had some. We all know the ubiquitous kiwi fruit,
Yeah.
Actinidia chinensis, the New Zealand.
Chinensis?
Yeah, it's
Not from New Zealand,
No,
everyone.
it doesn't come from New Zealand, although one has to give them their credit, I guess. They were the ones to popularise the fruit. I mean, who wants to eat one of those funny little brown furry things in the first place? So they had to become popularised.
Yeah.
And of course, they're producing new cultivars, and they're also looking at the genus, because all of the Actinidias have an edible fruit of one form or another.
Right.
And it's only chinensis that came commonly into cultivation initially. So now we're looking at some of the others. And Len has planted here what is now being called the kiwiberry, as opposed to the kiwi fruit. And it's another species of Actinidia, Actinidia arguta. Now, like all of the genus, generally speaking, you need a male cross-pollinator
Yep.
for the female plants. Now, you don't need to have one-on-one. They're not into monogamy. So you can plant one male Actinidia and it will probably service anywhere up to 8 or 10 female plants, particularly if you're planted in the middle somewhere.
So it's a stud kiwi.
It is a stud kiwi. And Len can't remember whether he planted male and female arguta here, but he seems to think that there's every possibility that as long as some of the male plants are in flower of some of the other kiwi fruits, so the chinensis, then they may well be cross-pollinating the arguta as well. That would mean, of course, if you got seed from it and raised them, you'd have something else.
Something weird.
Yeah.
So a few things then. These berries obviously aren't mature yet.
No.
How big do they get, do you think?
Not a lot bigger than they are, so a little bigger than a grape, or maybe the size of one of those sort of large seedless grapes.
And do you eat it whole?
Oh yes, you don't have to peel it. It doesn't have that furry skin.
I don't peel kiwi fruits.
Yeah, I
It's
know
very
some-
good for you, the skin.
Yeah, I know. There's some weird people out there that will eat all that furry brown stuff, but anyhow.
So the kind of kiwis that we're familiar with are over there. I'll drop in some footage
Yeah.
now. Very vigorous, beautiful leaves.
Yeah.
I think King Charles has some growing over the front of Highgrove. So clearly they are quite hardy.
Oh yes, they're cold hardy. I mean, they're deciduous vines.
Are they? I didn't know they were deciduous.
Well, most of the edible ones are, or the ones that are being eaten are.
Right.
There are evergreen Actinidias as well, and there's
Right.
some gorgeous ornamental ones that have pink ends to the leaves and white ends to the leaves.
Which you have.
Yes, Actinidia
I bought one
colomicta.
from you. Oh, it's
and-
making sense now.
Yeah, and unfortunately I can't tell you whether it's a boy or a girl, and it won't matter because unless you've got both sexes you won't get fruit anyway. But yeah, the one I think I sold you was Tetramera malacoides.
It looks like the leaf has been dipped in white paint.
Yeah, it's weird.
Unbelievable.
And it's not a variegation, it's some sort of natural thing of the plant, and not every leaf is like that. So you'll have green leaves, you'll have some with white tips, some with pink tips, some will be half pink and half white, others will be all pink or all white. So they're remarkable looking plants. So there's a lot more to Actinidias than we're actually engaging with yet.
So back to the classic kiwi. Other friends of mine had, actually it's in their neighbour's garden on the boundary fence though. Such a thug. I mean, that thing grows, it seems like it grows 2 meters overnight. It's like a triffid. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, like most climbing plants, they have a zest for life and they're all out there trying to take over somebody else's territory. That's what climbers do by nature.
Oh.
So if you're going to plant any climbing plant, unless it's some wussy little wimpy thing,
Which we're not interested in.
yeah, well, exactly. We want something with a bit of oomph to it, but you plant them with the knowledge that you're going to have to manage them.
Control.
Yeah, and it is about control.
I'm noticing this one has got some lovely arching stems, but the minute it
Yeah,
finds
find
southern
something.
twine, it's quite a strong binder.
Oh yes, so these things could grow up through a large tree and virtually completely take it over. Having said that though, is there anything wrong with that happening if in fact the tree itself is boring? So,
or dead.
Or dead. Well, and the only problem with dead trees is of course at some stage or another they're going to rot off at the ground and fall over, and then you've got 2 or 3 times the amount to clean up. But anyhow, let's worry about that
Let's
some
find
other
the
time.
romance in it.
Yeah,
Stephen.
that's right, exactly. We'll try to anyway. So, yeah, so I was quite pleased to see the kiwiberry.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, I'm still not really fond of the name.
No. And have you tried the fruit ever?
Yeah, it's very sweet. It's very tasty. The Actinidias are supposed to be really high in vitamin C, so they're definitely worthwhile having. And if you've got somewhere in the garden where you could grow things like these, perhaps over a pergola or along a neighbour's fence that you don't like, then yeah, why not? But remember, you will need a boy and a girl. And the big issue is that if you lose one and you don't remember which was which, the other one won't flower and fruit, even if it's a female, without its compatriot. So it can be really hard to match them up again. Sometimes you're better to pull all of them out and start again.
Wow. Now, would this be as hardy as the regular one?
If anything, I think it's probably slightly hardier. The normal kiwi fruit, or Actinidia chinensis, in dry weather will burn a little bit and look a bit mucky. In fact, 1 or 2 of these here have obviously had the heat on them. But look at the arguta. It's in the same conditions and its foliage is pristine.
Yeah.
So it is quite a hardy plant, I think. Certainly at least to the heat. Whether it's as cold hardy as some of the others, I'm not sure. But most of them come from fairly cold parts of Asia. No real reason why they shouldn't be.
Wow. Absolutely beautiful.
Yes, and I wish I was here when it was actually ripe. But anyhow,
Me too.
Another visit maybe.
Oh, Stephen, we have eaten our way through the Yarra Valley.
Yeah, we certainly have done that. I think we need to go to a winery next time and drink our way through the Yarra Valley as well.
Well, yeah, possibly. The great thing about Rayner's Orchard is that there is a nursery and you can exit through the gift shop, and basically everything that we've mentioned in this video, I can see. There's all these amazing fruit and citrus trees. This is the Chilean guava. I mean, there's everything here.
Yeah, so you can end up with your own orchard out of Rayner's Orchard.
Yes.
If you don't manage to spend your time down here just gluttonizing, really.
So the website details are below, so you can make a booking and you can come in a group. The guide takes you through and shows you everything that you can pick and eat and gorge on.
And you can also collect fruit while you're here, and you pay for that separately, so you can take bags of fruit home by the kilo. And what more could you want? Tree ripened fruit.
Oh, and
Yum.
they're things that you are not going to find in a supermarket or really anywhere else. It
Yeah.
is the most extraordinary thing. So many thanks to Varesh and the team. Many thanks to Len for coming out of retirement to talk to us.
Yes, I think we must have some pull there to get somebody to come out of retirement to talk to us, but that was
Yes.
fabulous.
So if you want to know what we're doing next week, you'll have to hit subscribe.
And don't forget our Monday short. So if you've got a question you'd like to ask me, put it in the comments below and we will answer it on Monday.
We will indeed. Now, who knows what we'll be doing next week, but if you subscribe, we post every Friday and we look forward to seeing you then.
Bye all.